Friday, the final day of the week. These are the voyages of the program Unsportsmanlike Conduct. Its ongoing mission to explore strange new movies, to seek out new bits and new edifications, to boldly go where no radio program has gone before. Oh, Hellcat's Movie Club. It's Hellcat's Movie Club. Hellcat's Movie Club. It's Hellcat's Movie Club. With Kent Wolgamont of the Lincoln Journal-Star. Kent, good to see you again. How was your 2 weeks off?
My 2 weeks off. I believe I was just adding in my head. I think I've seen 14 movies since the last time we talked.
Holy crap.
New? All new?
No, all new except for
The one we're doing.
the one we're going to talk about. Last week was South by Southwest online.
Okay.
And basically you could watch all the movies that I would have watched down there online. And I saw 8 movies there, 2 screenings here, 3 screenings here, this movie, and then a couple of movies on television, on HBO and National Geographic that I wrote about or am writing about. So I think it's 14 movies in the last. So I am just about movied out at this
A lot of movies.
Yeah, he needs some Nebraska ball back in his life, is what he's saying.
Oh, yeah. Oh, in a fit of idiocy, right? The same chair, I watched 3 movies back to back on last Friday.
Mm-hmm.
Got up, got something to eat, came back, sat down, and started watching basketball. I was in this chair from 9 in the morning until 11:30 that night. I didn't think I would be able to walk.
I don't know if you're looking for sympathy, but you're not going to get it. What was the best movie you saw at South by Southwest?
The very best is one you're not going to have heard of, but I hope it actually turns up. And it's a documentary, but it's not like one I've ever seen before. And it's called Without Getting Killed or Caught. And it's about songwriter Guy Clark, who wrote LA Freeway, Desperados, Waiting for a Train. His wife, Susanna Clark, who also was a songwriter and an artist, and their best friend, who is Townes Van Zandt, who wrote Poncho and Lefty and all of that. Well, Townes was a living disaster area, you know. But Susanna Clark basically in the movie says, Guy had my heart and Townes had my soul. So it was a, shall we say, complicated relationship. And she did an audio diary. She did it on cassette tapes and also a written diary. So they have Sissy Spacek read her diary when you don't hear her talking. And then she also recorded Guy and Townes, and then they used the old footage. And it's just unbelievably good movie. It won the documentary award down there, and it was really, really good.
I love Townes Van Zandt. I had no idea that was coming out or existed, so that's exciting.
Yeah, well, it isn't. I don't think it has a distributor yet, so probably will be in the fall.
Ken, real quick before we get to the movie today, we've talked a lot over the last year with you about like the behind the scenes stuff with the movies and kind of where the industry is going. I'm curious as to if we should read anything into Black Widow, which is one of the next Marvel movies. They've decided that that's going to be on Disney Plus this summer. You're going to have to pay for it. It's not just going to be free. But should we read anything into that they are going to put one of their crown jewels up on the internet? Essentially, I assume it's going to have a theatrical release as well. But I think a lot of people are surprised about this, given that they've delayed it, I think, 3 times now.
I think that's their issue, is they didn't feel like they could kick it back any farther because you've got a traffic jam coming towards the end of the year. So you put it up. Warner's has shown that people will actually go to the theaters to see movies, even if they're on streaming. So I think that's all you read into it. From everything that I have been able to gather, they're kind of done pushing movies back.
Yeah.
Because theaters are going to reopen depending on where you are in the country, sooner perhaps rather than later. But even California opened their theaters to partial audiences at this point. And so when you get to full go, which I'm guessing around here, you're going to get to 100% capacity, maybe 1st of July. That would be when I'm thinking they may go all restrictions off because of the vaccinations and all of that. Then they're going to be back to their regular release schedule, but that Black Widow's kind of hanging right in the no man's land there between full go and partial and all of that. So I think they're just putting it on Disney to make sure that they get their audience for it and not put her right up against whatever Marvel movie they've got scheduled already for December.
Okay.
And I can't remember which one it is, but I think there's one scheduled for like either the week before or after Thanksgiving, maybe.
I think they pushed Spider-Man back to December.
Yep, that's it. And you don't want to put one right on top of the other. So I think that they were kind of forced to do that.
Okay.
So to our film this week, and it's streaming on Netflix. It's called The One I Love. It's from 2014. I think the best way to describe it on the wiki page, it talks about it being a thriller. I would call it a romantic mystery.
And I would hope that during this one, we don't give away the twist, because having watched it a second time, if you know what the twist is, it kind of brings it down a little.
Okay, interesting. That's a good point. I'm glad you said that, because I probably was going to say something about it. But essentially, it's a couple. There's only 3 actors in this entire film. Ted Danson has a very small role at the very beginning, and then that's pretty much it. But it's Mark Duplass and Elizabeth Moss. Elizabeth Moss, of course, most famously from Mad Men. And they are a married couple who are having marital issues. And they go to Ted Danson for counseling. Ted Danson, realizes that these two need, maybe next level counseling, and gives them a pamphlet to a place, a retreat where they go to. It's a beautiful retreat. There's no one else there. It's basically just a place for those two to get away and be alone. It's got a beautiful home, and it's got a pool, garden, and it has this guest house. And the guest house kind of plays a pivotal role in all of this. And they begin to, go through, the machinations of, being alone together in this place, and begin to realize that something is amiss when they go into this guest house. Because, for example, first time out, she goes first, right?
Into the guest house?
Yeah, she goes into the guest house first. And she ends up finding him there, and they're clicking like crazy.
Like the old days.
Like the old days.
It's like, it's working. What a great
they end
night
up
they're
sleeping
having
together, and then she leaves the guest house to go back to the main house and finds that he is sleeping on the couch. And
this house is 12 steps away from each other. There's no
they're
way.
not very far.
She's confused.
So she's confused as to what. How did you get here? So
Was there a tunnel underground?
He's playing,
and he doesn't remember.
Yeah, he's lost.
Yeah, he's lost, and so it pretty much starts from there. And that's as far as I'll go.
Then it just gets psychological. Yeah,
it gets psychological. But I think the thing I liked about it is, and I guess this is where, being a first-time viewer, I kept, waiting for this to make the traditional, we'll call it rom-com turn, where eventually
some
starts
goofy thing happens.
It starts to happen between them, and it kind of does, and it kind of doesn't.
It sure doesn't do it the cliched fashion.
No. So it's totally not cliche. But the thing I like about it is a different twist on the romantic comedy. And I wouldn't call it a romantic comedy necessarily.
It does have funny moments.
But it does have funny moments in it.
I was going to say, but it's important. It has the humor is what keeps it from being really kind of dull, to be honest.
Sure.
And the other thing about it struck me is that watching it the second time is that how carefully it's put together to make it really have a when you do find out what the twist is, right? It and knowing that going in and watching it the second time, you can see how the writers and the director layered in all those pieces that you're really not looking at when you see it the first time, because you're looking at the main story. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Stibbs, it was your pick. You got what?
Yeah, I didn't remember. I remember I probably watched it a year or so after it came out. So it'd been a while. I remembered liking it. I remember it being different and weird, and that being a reason why I liked it. I didn't really remember the twist that we're talking about or exactly how it all came together. So I was a little bit in between you guys. I wasn't watching it like Kent was, like kind of looking for these things, because I still didn't remember exactly how it played out, but I also wasn't totally blown away by certain things because I had an idea. I think it's a really good movie. It keeps you entertained enough, like you said, Ken. It seems like something that should be duller than it is. There's only 3 actors.
There's only 3 actors, and it only takes place basically at this
in
this
one
retreat.
yard.
Yeah.
And the twist and the end makes a lot of it worth it. Any parts that you did feel like were maybe getting old or stale or boring, there's plenty of reward at the end, in my opinion. It wasn't perfect. I'm usually a fan of movies that don't tie everything up in a bow and need to explain every single little thing as to how it happened and why it got there. But there are certain aspects of
there's like no explanation.
The ending and the twist that I wish there was just a tiny bit more. I don't need it wrapped up in a bow for me.
See, I thought the ending. And I'm not going to ask the question that I was originally going to ask because we don't want to spoil it. But I think the ending, in my opinion, is still very open-ended.
Yeah, it is. But even when the way he kind of found out that stuff when he's on the computer, like
that's the part
I'd
that
like
I want to
know more about.
Yeah, not the ending. Do whatever you want with the ending.
Exactly.
It's more about the how of
how did this happen? Yeah, and
exactly.
how is Ted Danson involved? And where is he? Like, that's stuff that I would like to know what happened there just a little bit more.
And my theory is, whoever wrote the screenplay didn't have any idea.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to. Yeah,
you know what? It's funny that you say that, Kent, because sometimes you watch a TV show that's like a mystery box TV show. Like Lost, I think, is a great example. Lost, it had all these questions. And then by the end, they were trying to answer the questions, and the answers always sucked. And it's like, you know what? It was more fun when I just got to theorize with my friends about it.
Yeah.
Maybe Kent, maybe Kent will certainly get this reference. But the
World War I.
The former TV show Fantasy Island. In a way, this kind of played out like an episode of Fantasy Island with Ted Danson playing the Ricardo Montalban character. Sadly, there was no tattoo. But instead of it all coming together at the end when the ship reaches dock, it just leaves it open-ended. But that's kind of how I watched it. It was like an episode of Fantasy Island.
That's pretty good. I like that. I wouldn't have thought of that. The two things that the small set, right? I mean, I would almost guess that Ted Danson filmed his part within the house somewhere.
Yes.
Yeah.
He was in one room the whole movie.
He was in one room the whole movie, which tells me they either shot that at his house, went to his house and shot it, or he came to the one place where they had set up. That is an indicator of a very low budget movie.
Yep.
Okay. And if you look at the time, we're not talking about big star salaries. I mean, Ted Danson probably did this for next to nothing. Right. And Elizabeth Moss and Duplass were not going to be getting $5 million a piece or anything to make this movie. So when you look at it as a really, really little low budget movie, then I go, wow, this really is really good. And it was the director's first feature on top of that. So
yeah, the film made, when you combine its international, its domestic, and the money it made with video on demand, it made barely over $1 million.
Yep.
Wow.
So it was a small budget film.
I do, along those lines, I very much enjoy movies that have to get creative with whether it's special effects or editing or camera angles. And again, without giving away a ton, I really enjoy watching those scenes where they have to get creative with those types of things because of the limitations they have with the actors and the space that they're working in. And this movie does a great job of making that happen. And it's always enjoyable to me to watch and kind of try to like point out, not because I want to find like where people messed up, but kind of point out like, oh, that's how they did that. And that's actually person, and that's the back of that guy's head and like whatever. It's fun for me to watch that kind of stuff. I enjoyed that a lot.
And there's some wide shots, particularly in the guest house. If you think about it, you kind of wonder, where is that camera actually at?
Yeah.
You know what I mean, Steve?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You're going, where is this?
Yeah.
Real quick, Kit, before we let you go, I wanted to talk about Elizabeth Moss, and without giving away another role that she plays in the movie Us, but if you've seen that and you haven't seen the movie we're talking about today, that this will kind of maybe let you in on something. She played a character in that movie and had to have like this extra bit of something to it, if you will, that differentiated her from
spice.
Yeah, and I thought that she once again was able to do that in this. I really like Elizabeth Moss. I think that she is a great actor. Because first time I had seen her was Mad Men, and then I saw her on West Wing. She was the daughter of President Bartlett on West Wing.
She's great in Handmaid's Tale.
Yeah, she is a great actor, and I thought that this was another one of those roles where it's just like, oh, there's just something about the way that she has certain scenes that makes her so different.
She's able to put that twinkle in her eye.
Yeah, like really, you look at her eyes, and it's completely different. Yeah.
And she plays, there's a movie, and I'm not going to remember the title of it, of course, where she plays basically a rock star gone off the rails. And
I don't know if I've seen this.
What's that?
I don't know if I've seen this movie. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty spectacularly good, I thought. Let me see if I can conjure up the IMDb and get the
well, while you're doing that,
First Smell.
Oh yeah.
That's it.
All right.
If you haven't seen it, it's well worth watching.
And again, the name of that was
Her Smell.
Her Smell.
Yeah.
Yep.
Close.
The one I love. It's streaming on Netflix.
Only an hour and a half, too.
Yeah, it's only an hour and a half,
yeah.
and it moves by pretty quick. And and like I said, it's a different twist. If if the wife or the girlfriend likes romantic films, and the guy likes a little mystery,
trap him into this thing.
I think it works for both audiences.
Yeah.
And my other question was, did they name this movie after that like 20-year-old REM song?
I don't know. That's a good question. Because when I Googled it, that's the first thing that came up was that REM song, not this movie.
Yeah.
I don't know. Because they could have, and who knows how they came up with the title of the movie. They could have easily named it Guest House.
Yeah.
I kind of like the play on the title because
you go and expecting
something else, but then after it's like,
exactly.
That too.
Yeah.
Either way it works. All right, Josh, what are we in for next week?
All right, I've heard about this movie. I haven't had a chance to see it just yet. It's a new movie. Kent, maybe you've seen it already. It is on Hulu. Mads Mikkelsen stars in it. It is called Another Round. The synopsis: Another Round is a fun, moving, life-affirming, and thought-provoking drama about friendship, freedom, love, and alcohol.
Well, you just got
mostly alcohol. It's,
Mostly alcohol.
Kent
it's
just gave you
four
two-
school teachers who decide they're going to stay drunk, basically. And what happens to them?
I'm looking forward to this.
All
I
right.
like Matt Mickelson.
And that is on Hulu.
Hulu. Yeah, I'll tweet out a link in a few minutes.
The
right.
director got nominated for Best Director for that movie.
Sweet.
So it's right up your alley,
Yeah.
Josh. It's all about the
big director
directors.
guy.
Big director guy.
Heck yeah.
All right, Kent. Well, thank you much. We appreciate it. Good to have you back, and we'll look forward to next week.
Sounds good.
There he is, Kent Wolgamott of the Lincoln Journal-Star. One Beer Friday is coming up on 1620 The Zone.
Hey everyone, Josh Peterson here for the FanDuel Sportsbook. I mean,